All right, I'm just gonna wait a couple minutes for River to join. I'm gonna share to some groups. Welcome to everybody who's joining. I'm just waiting for, hi, I'm just waiting for River to join the live and we can start talking about the eclipse energy that's happening right now. So just give me a few moments while River signs on. Let's see, approve. All right, so River's joining. Oh my gosh, okay, hi. Welcome. I'm so glad that that worked.
Yeah, it worked. I have a PC that I was trying to use that I still can't figure out. So hopefully my phone has enough battery to chat for a bit.
Well, you know what? We're gonna do the best that we can right now with what we have. I'm just going to cast and call a circle of protection around this whole live stream because we are opening up to spirit and I like everything to be super nice and protected. So, everyone that is watching, let's all just close our eyes for a moment and begin by taking some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, letting yourself arrive right here and right now. And as you find a comfortable breathing rhythm, please vision with me a bright white light all around you, in front of you, behind you, to your left and to your right, above you and below you, all around, like an orb, like an egg, as I cast and call a circle of protection around all of our energetic fields, utilizing all elements and directions around us, starting with east air, south fire, west water, north earth, and center spirit. As we recognize all worlds, realms, dimensions, spaces, and places in perfect harmony, for we are between the worlds, and what happens between the worlds affects all of the worlds. And I call to the guides, guardians, wise ancestors, ascended masters, angels, and starry beings that love all of us beyond any reason, that want to be here today, giving messages. And let's take one more breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, and we can open our eyes and start this live stream. All right. Ooh. All right. Well, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, we wanted to come on today to talk about the eclipse that is happening tonight, in the morning, tomorrow morning, tonight. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and I want to introduce myself, or we just want to jump into it.
Um, just real brief. I'm River. I am a 13 sign astrologer, meaning I follow the astronomical zodiac with the sign delineations match up with the uneven sizes of the constellations, and it includes Ophiuchus as the 13th zodiac constellation. Um, yeah, that's I think all I want to say.
Cool. Well, I'm Verone. I'm a acupuncturist, psychic, and astrologer. My main goal is really empowering and healing people, and I use different modalities kind of fused together in order for people to really remember who they are. So, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Real quick, I'm sure most people know us who are tuning in. So, okay, so let's start with where the eclipse is going to be in the constellation for people who are watching. I think astrology is starting to get confusing, as we were talking about that earlier. Depending on what lens of astrology you use, you may have a different constellation or sign that you're viewing into. So as you're looking at other astrologers, you might be like, wait a minute, why the hell, why is everybody saying something different? So like River said, we're tuned into 13 sign astrology, and that is the astronomical size of the constellation. And I think that is a lot different from a lot of other astrologies where we're using the actual size of the constellation. So this eclipse will be happening in the Aries constellation. And do you want to start saying something about Aries and go from there? We can have it be like a conversation.
Yes, and just to, in case anyone is confused, the most dominant form of astrology in the West is tropical astrology, which is connected to the equinoxes and the solstices rather than the stars. So in tropical astrology, this lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse, is happening in Taurus. But as far as the stars go, this eclipse is happening in the stars of Aries. And I just want to say about that, most of the stars of Aries are a little bit above the ecliptic. And just below the ecliptic are the stars of Cetus, the great whale or sea monster, which is actually the closest stars that this eclipse aligns to are in Cetus, the mouth of Cetus, Minkar. And then above you have the stars of Aries. So as far as the zodiac goes, this is an Aries eclipse. This is, Aries significations are that spark, that initiator energy, stars of like action and leadership and courage and setting out into the new.
Yeah, I definitely see Aries as like the emperor card of the tarot. So really being able to sit in that throne of empowerment, sitting in that seat of your soul, and that there are lots of people and beings that will like to do that for you. If you're not sitting in your seat of empowerment, something else is going to come in and rule you. So I think that, as we're talking about, we can get more into the Cetus too, as Cetus is underneath being that deep unconscious. A lot of us aren't sitting in our seat of empowerment because we're being ruled by these unconscious parts of us. So eclipses, they create change. Eclipses create change. They are big dragon energy. They're coming in to show us where we're out of balance. So you may have things coming up to the surface that you feel like, oh fuck, why am I backsliding? But really what's happening is it's showing you those deep unconscious parts, really bringing it to the surface so that you can sit more in that Aries energy, so that you can be the emperor, the empress, the god, the goddess, the goddess of your own life. You don't want to be ruled by something else. And a lot of times we are ruled by those unconscious parts. So lots of trauma healing usually comes up for me during eclipses of any type, but especially this right now with Aries and then Cetus, the whale underneath.
Yes, eclipses are very powerful times of change, of death, rebirth energy, of things being revealed that have been hidden.
And
Um,
things being hidden too. It's like the
yes,
revealing and the hiding. Because if you think about like what eclipses do, they're eclipsing, the energy or the light. So things will be revealed, but things could also be covered up.
exactly. And this is a North Node eclipse. So the North Node Rahu in Vedic astrology is the head of the dragon. This is the forward-looking, the future um, side of this axis that is the North and South Node, the head and the tail of the dragon. Well, this is a North Node eclipse ushering in the new in Aries, a sign I associate with that new. It's the sign of birth. You're coming from the exiting the soup, the collective soup, of the ego dissolution of Pisces, and you are being birthed. Um, So I think this is, a time of bringing in that like newness, that energy, that excitement of Aries. I mean, Aries is also can be quite combative and headstrong, impatience. These are some other qualities to be aware of. As a total lunar eclipse is a very, very amplified lunation. It's like a full moon on steroids.
Yeah, and with full moons, we know full moons are times to like big releases. They're a culmination point. So this is like an ultra culmination point. And I want to go back to the part that you said Aries is like the newness. It's like the awakener, it's the newness. And even that idea of newness with Cetus underneath, that deep primordial sea beast, really thinking about like there's parts of us inside, so many parts of us inside that we haven't met yet. So it can seem new, but it may even be ancient. This is a time to like tap into those deep primordial parts of yourself, the parts that you've buried like lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, the parts of us that we've been like protecting, and we've got armor all around it that we've like buried at the bottom of the sea, the parts of us that are buried at the bottom of the cosmic ocean. Those are really having to be like drudged up to the surface so that they can really burst as that flame, that ignition of like new energy or new things that we have forgotten about. It's a big time of remembering. I really think eclipses are a big time of remembering, especially when we're tapping into that primordial sea beast, that Cetus. And you can call it Cetus, you can call it Tiamat, you can call it Typhon. I see Cetus as the mother of Medusa. So it's the lineage of like the rejected feminine. It really is the lineage of rejected feminine. As we're talking about 13 sign astrology, it's all about the serpent. It's all about the dragon. It's all about the rejected. I mean, how many schools of astrology have just try to throw out Ophiuchus and throw out the serpent. So this is a big time of like, what are the rejected parts of you? What are the parts of you that you've like buried deep down at the bottom of the ocean? Well, they've got to come back up. They've got to be resurrected. And it may not feel that great, but it's the only way you're going to be able to really find that cord back to that inner soul and that inner part of you. Otherwise, the emperor, the Aries energy, you can be led astray by something else, whether it's your unconscious or something else. So, I do think eclipses can bring challenges and people can be like, oh my gosh, it feels really intense. But just remembering that it is a rebalancing and a refinding of the self. It's this like dark and light, like the two dragons, almost like the Taiji symbol, like swirling back and forth.
Yes. Um, I was thinking about talking about Cetus as Medusa's mother, and that we've had a series of eclipses prior to this one aligned to Algol, which is the head of the Medusa. So, there are always connections in astrology, and even eclipse cycles um, often go back hundreds, sometimes quite some time of the entire cycle, and it all connects. But more recently, we've we've had these eclipse cycles activating the head of Medusa. So yes, this fierce feminine force, this passion. I mean, I think we've had a lot of issues come up around those with wombs. Um, and I think those are continuing as we have the primordial mother, the deep sea mother, Cetus. Cetus that's also, I think, does have the devouring aspect, the devouring mother, the side of that like when you are, the stories of being swallowed by a whale, of going on this night sea quest of death and rebirth. Here we are at the mouth of the whale. So I see there is something about that, perhaps emerging from the mouth, of this death journey, and coming into this birth at this lunar eclipse, but I think it simultaneously birth and death. We're at the Samhain gate, which is on the other side of in the southern hemisphere is the Beltane gate, so which is all abundance and birthing, but Samhain is death and like the descent. So I feel like the connection to Cetus and above Aries, it has all this death and rebirth energy,
Well,
which is also the energy of an eclipse itself.
I'd love to talk too about like what you're saying is, Medusa is like near and dear to me, and she and Cetus both were killed by Perseus. So it's this like idea of, the colonizer coming in and killing the divine feminine. And so this idea of like being a monster, because like, Medusa is painted to be this monster and Cetus is like this monster. And like what turns us into monsters? I've been thinking a lot about that, especially coming from a long lineage of women who have been abused, but also have become the abuser. Like you are abused, but then you become the abuser. You're the victim and you stay victim so long and then you become the narcissist. It's not like we just wake up one day and we're like, okay, I'm going to be an abuser. I'm going to be a narcissist. It's like there's a journey to it. So is there one side of Cetus and Medusa that maybe there's a monstrosity to them, but like the monstrosity has been created. So there's a lot of like lines that we're walking, in between life and death, in between, birth and rebirth, in between like being a monster and being like super caring. Like I think a lot of us have been pushed to our edges where it's like, we want to like destroy. There's a destroy and a destruction. Even the star Algol, as you're talking about it, think that star can be super powerful, and it could like, if you're using it in a way that you don't know, it can really mess things up. Even working with Medusa, like she can be very liberating and bringing a lot of like of your traumas to light, and also like it can really rock your world. So there's this fine line between like, being the monster and also being the one that's overcome. Everything that we've all gone through, like all of our trials and tribulations, they make us who we are. Not to say that we have to keep going through it, but when do you choose to let go of like the victim story? Like when do you choose to be like, okay, Perseus killed me and my mom, like that happened, and how can I turn that into like my story of redemption, instead of being like, I'm gonna eat every man that like comes, in my path, because like that really, the divine feminine energy, it can birth and it can destroy. A mother can nurture her baby and care for her baby, or she can eat her baby. Lots of mothers in the wild do that. So I think that we really have that energy coming up too within us. I think a lot of us forget like we have a lot of power inside of us. And I think people are like, oh, I'd never do that. But you might do something if pushed to a certain limit, So I kind of say, like, let yourself go all in to all the emotions, let yourself feel all the different feelings. And with this eclipse energy, I do feel like so much of it is like bubbling to the surface for us to remember ourselves and our power.
Yes, absolutely. I was just thinking about the depths represented by Cetus and the collective unconscious. But in combination with Aries and this eclipse, I think there is a way we could be operating from a place of unconsciousness and kind of like allowing ourselves to be consumed and devoured by the potency of Cetus and the fervor of Aries. But I also, tapping into this primordial wisdom, this wisdom keeper that is also Cetus, and combining that to have the courage to step out into the unknown, to really harness, that emperor energy that is Aries. And we also should talk about the fact that the eclipse is very tightly conjunct Uranus.
Oh, yeah. So expect the unexpected. I'll be staying home tomorrow.
Yeah.
From now forth, from now until Wednesday, catch me in the bathtub.
Yeah, I mean, that could be some good advice. You might want to lay low.
Yeah. Because
Just your
everybody's experiencing the eclipse, like not just astrologers, not just people who are tapped into spirit, not just everybody's experiencing the eclipse, whether they're aware of it or not. So just to keep that in mind when interacting with people, known and unknown.
Yeah, Uranus is a very excitable kind of, it brings excitement, and it enlivens the situation, but it's also the wild card. It's a very unpredictable energy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Well, yeah, that's what I love about Uranus. It's like, I'm going to do it my own way. And that's a big part of this too. It's like, stay in your own lane, pay attention to you. Only you can bring forth your magic. Only you can bring forth your soul. And in a world where like everyone's trying to be like everybody else, Uranus comes in and is like, I'm a weirdo, I'm a witch, I'm a queer, I'm a revolutionary, big revolutionary energy. I mean, even the way that it spins, it like spins on its side. It's different than the rest of the other planets. So it's really coming in to like give us that uniqueness. You know, it's very electric. It's like kind of like lightning energy. And you may have those aha moments. And those aha moments will also be coming from the depths of Cetus. So we're like really going to the deep, like primordial the ancient part of us, you know, the part of our soul that's been alive for thousands of years. We're bringing that to the surface. Then Uranus is going to like electrify us and be like, oh yeah, there that is, you know. So that you can bring your unique magic through, because like everything that we need here on planet Earth isn't here. You know, we are bringing it through, and a lot of the old ways, well, they're not working. Most of them, most everything, in my opinion, needs to crumble. And Uranus is really going to bring forth that energy for change. I mean, I see it as like big revolutionary energy.
yes, freedom. And Aries is the champion of I am, the the I, the individual. And so with Uranus, this is the signature of revolution, of freedom. Um, there's a lot more going on with that, which we'll get to. But that's just isolated in Aries. Um, there's also a square to Saturn, but I
Well,
think
we
that
can
we
talk
sh
about that.
okay,
I'm trying to
let's
do it like piece by piece so people can follow, because I know
yeah.
that you and I hold a lot of information within us. And so I want to make sure that like people can follow along, and then maybe we can tie it all up or something.
hmm hmm Yeah, just that so since 2021, Saturn and Uranus have been square. And this year we get this total lunar eclipse activating this square. Um, Saturn in Capricorn, Saturn is at home in Capricorn. Saturn is a planet of parameters, of limits, of discipline, of authority, restriction, um, and is in this earthy terrain of Capricorn, which is very, it could be tied as far as like on a mundane level to governments, societies, administrative kind of operations, and there's a lot more esoteric. There's an esoteric side to Capricorn that I think gets neglected sometimes, but because it's all also ties back to the ancient god Enki of magic and of water, and there's a lot to say about that. But I think just kind of isolating like the difference between this Uranus energy in the land of I am, this freedom seeking energy, with the kind of parameters, the structure, the limits, the restriction in this realm of Capricorn that is also very structural, because this is the home of Saturn, and they're coming. This eclipse is a T square, with the sun over here and the moon, full moon, but they're in a T with Saturn. And
T
that's a
for
very
tense.
T for tense.
T for
Yes.
tense. Well, yeah, I mean, I see Saturn as like, yes to everything that you said. And also, Saturn, especially Saturn in Capricorn, so much restructuring, especially of the body, like so much to do with like our bones and our structure of our body and the structure in which we live our lives. There's been a lot of things that have been broken down and continue to break down because what was happening before just really wasn't working. So, you know, I do see the Uranus as like freedom and the Saturn is like limitations, but we can apply all astrology within ourselves. Like to me, I think it's important that we really connect deep inside of ourselves and really see that all of these concepts, ideas can be placed within ourselves. So this restructuring, you know, our lives have changed a lot. Most everyone's lives have probably changed in ways that they didn't see coming. And so it's really important to allow this restructuring to happen and really tapping into our own bones. I think it's important with Saturn in Capricorn to really tap into our bones and allow our bones to restructure in a way. You know, a great time, I think, to even tap in with ancestors too. I think Saturn in Capricorn could really bring a lot of ancestral wisdom up. And I see Saturn too, especially Saturn in Capricorn, really tapped into those ancient libraries. Like whenever I work with Saturn, it really has to do a lot with those ancient libraries. So again, back to like ancient wisdom being able to come forward. I mean, we hold this information in our bones, and sometimes we just have to like unlock something in a certain way, and then we remember. So yeah.
Yes, Capricorn and Saturn both connect to maturity and that which is older, the traditions. Um, you know, locked in a square with Uranus at a total lunar eclipse, there the changing of the structure of reality. Saturn as our material reality. Um, they've been in this square again since 2021. This is things coming to a head at the full moon lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse. It's like reality has to shift. Reality has to change. What we're building, Capricorn, has to like bring in this new from sorry, I may get kicked off on here because you don't need to know that. But hopefully that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Um, I have my limits. Talking about limits, I have my Facebook programmed that I only have a certain amount of time to be on it, so I might get kicked off, but I'll figure out how
Okay.
to get
Well,
back on.
I took all my limits off. I had limits and I took them all off because they wouldn't work anyway. So yeah, I like what you're saying about the like fabric of reality breaking down. It makes me think of like the Tower card, which is a very like I think that could be a Saturnian card too. It's like if you grip on too tightly to the old ways that are crumbling, the old reality, you're going to fall with the tower. So there has to be some type of like, you've got to adjust. You've got to adjust with Uranus and Saturn and Capricorn because everything is shifting and everything is changing. And if you try to be like, but this is how things were and this is what I know, you're going to crumble in that like pile of rubble and have to rebuild anyway. So like, I mean, I do think that that energy could be a breakdown, breakthrough energy. Saturn and in Capricorn square Uranus. I think that could be a big like, I'm having a freaking breakdown. Nobody wants to have a breakdown, but sometimes you need to have a breakdown because you need to break it down. Like you really do need to break it down because the way in which you're running things, it just isn't working anymore, you know? And I do believe almost everybody watching life has changed a lot in the last couple of years, you know, and we're still adjusting and it's going to keep on happening because astrology is never just one isolated event, you know, it's like what has needing to change is going to continue to change. So, you know, reality as we know it isn't the same as it was before. And we ain't going
Yeah,
back to normal. Also, normal sucked. And like, what is normal anyways? So we're changing. And it is a lot about like stepping into the unknown. I mean, bringing it back to Cetus is like, sometimes you have to do something that you don't know what it looks like. And And the only way to do it is to do it because we've already know what like something back there looks like. A lot of shedding the past and a lot of stepping into this like kind of void space.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, do you want to move to the other side
Sure.
of things?
Zola
And
says, right, what is normal anyways? Well, I know you
yeah,
don't, yeah, I mean, well, I think we think a lot of things are normal, like we go to work and that's normal, and when people do this and that, you know, we go to school and that's normal. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about just the way everything is run and how everything has just been, and I'm like, all it's done is mostly programmed people. You know, it's like you go to school until you're like old enough to go to college, and then you do your thing, you get your job, and like a lot of people don't want to work anymore. You know why? Because they don't want to base their whole meaning of existence on like, do I have a job? Like that's breaking down a lot. And I think that that's awesome because people are remembering they're more than just like being servants. So that's breaking down. That's a big one, I think, that's breaking down and needs to, because we're not here to just like work away, you know? We're not, you know, like little ants or something. Yeah, wasting time till we die. Jen's like, we're just wasting time till we die. I mean, it feels like that sometimes. And people feel that. And then people feel empty. So there really is a different type of community building that I think is moving away from like centralized governments and like the ones that, you know, celebrities or people that we've like put above us on pedestals. That's breaking down because like that just doesn't work for any of us anymore. You know, the pyramid is crumbling and we've been holding it up. So, you know, what do we want to build? Because we're the ones doing it.
yes, and there's certainly the side of those that want to uphold the old ways and
Well, if I
um,
was like in control and making money, and I mean, if it benefits you, these certain laws and rules and structures and ideas and beliefs, they've been created. I mean, goes back to like colonization and colonization of our brains, colonization of our magic, colonization of our mythology, of astrology, of all of that. So like if it benefits the little ones at the top, like why would they want it to change? They're going to find every little way to like hold it in. So, you know, yeah, of course. And these are systems that have been in place for thousands of years. So when they fall hard. Oh, did I lose you? No, you're still there. Okay. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Why is this? Why is it? I can see you, but I can't hear you. It says there's a little like muted button at the bottom. Okay, you're back? Okay, good. Okay, great. I love that you've got like more limits and I'm like, get rid of all these. I wasn't paying attention to them anyways. It like didn't matter. It was just kicking me off of lives. So
well, and I just want to one just give voice to you mentioned like what are you building? I mean, Saturn is also an ally in this. You know, it can be also kind of like the the boner killer or whatever, but it's also, you know, being in your authority, like what are you, you know, what parameters are you creating? What
Saturn
structures
is
are you
kind of
creating?
like a boner. I mean, if the boner didn't like have a Saturnian quality, it'd be flaccid. Just like our body, if we didn't have bones, we'd just be like a puddle of like organs and goo and blood. Like you need structure, you need form to the function. You need like a foundation of your house, or you don't have a house. So Saturn is very useful. I know people come in like Daddy Saturn, like it's like, but yeah, you need that.
And so how can these energies work together when they're squared off, T squared off?
Well,
Um,
we know
but
squares.
head to head, you know, this is uh, these two are squaring off, and we have this eclipse to illuminate it on
Hmm.
election day here in the United States.
And
So
I
I
really,
think that
that square energy, like as you and I like have, you know,
skeleton
square.
bones.
Oh yeah. And Zola knows about bones. Her and her partner know about bones. So the square energy, like squares can be like boom, 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 or squares can be like, I've made a like an axe point to tread through something. It can be very dynamic and work together. So really paying attention to that, because I mean, you and I know with the arc square energy, it really can be like head to head and feel like they're fighting one another. But if they can come together, they can really like tread upstream. I really see it as almost like salmon energy, to be able to tread upstream or to cut through something that needs to be cut through. So it's very dynamic, especially a T square, super dynamic.
Yeah. Uh, um, yes. So perhaps we should go to the other side where we have the sun.
Yeah,
So the sun is supplying the light to the eclipse.
because the
Um,
moon does not make its own light, so we have to always remember that.
so yes, so on the other side of the moon, across the way, directly across, we have the sun in Libra, as far as the stars go. Um, and the sun is actually conjunct one of the two primary stars of Libra. They're the scales have two primary stars. They're also called the claws because Libra was part of the ancient larger scorpion that was, eventually the, the claws became the scales as a result, likely of precession when the uh, the equinox happened at the time of the autumnal equinox happened where the scales aligned with the scales. Hence, it was the great balance of heaven. But I just want to give voice to the fact that the scales were, prior to that, were part of a much larger scorpion. So this is kind of the entry into the greater scorpion, the scales of judgment, the scales of Ma'at. Um, the sun is conjunct Zubin el Janubi. This is the southern claw, the southern scale, and actually Mercury is going to be conjunct the sun as well. Kazimi, meaning um, almost exactly conjunct the sun. The Kazimi of Mercury and the sun. This is like aha. It can be. This is like information, messages coming through. And here in the scales are the scales of justice also, very much connected to justice, equality, fairness, balance, the great balance of heaven.
Sorry.
And then, so we have Sun, Mercury together, opposite Moon, Uranus. So there could be some revelatory information, big messages on this day, personally, collectively. It's pretty unique, I think, that the Kazimi is happening, this alignment, Mercury, Sun, during this lunar eclipse.
Yeah, and with
Very,
Mercury being like the psychopomp, the one that's able to go from the mortals to the gods, you can place that to yourself. It's like Mercury, especially like when it's Kazimi sitting in the heart of the sun, sitting in the throne of the sun, you're able to get those deeper soul messages. Mercury there, and then across from Uranus I see as a higher vibration of Mercury. So again, with all of these like messages coming through, insight coming through, but being able to really like tap deeper into that like part of yourself. So really important, I think, during the eclipse to sit with yourself. I like to do meditations blindfolded in the bathroom because it just kind of like blocks everything out. Like, of course, listen to what we're saying, but really the most important person you need to be listening to is yourself, because that's where the messages are going to be coming from, those deep soul messages, dredging it up from the bottom of the primordial ocean with Cetus and bringing whatever has been hiding in the belly of the whale, whatever you've been keeping concealed, whatever you've been protecting your own self from. We protect ourselves from our own power. until we're ready to use it. So that's coming up, like Mercury Kazemi coming, that's all like magnifying. And with those scales of Libra, you know, like thinking about entering into the underworld or going deeper into the descent, the judgment day, weighing your heart against the feather, you know, with like the mysteries of Mahat, or like entering and visiting Anubis. It's like, what are you taking with you and what can't you take with you? There's certain things you cannot take deeper in to the cave, deeper into the underworld, deeper into the beyond. There's things that we have to let go of, and parts of our heart that we have to purify in order to be able to bring that information up. If you're holding on, if you've got like a dresser of a whole bunch of like tattered clothes and you're holding on to all these like past things, maybe your mom gave you this or somebody gave you this, and you're holding on to all these things, you're never going to be able to get the newness of Aries. You're not going to be able to get the newness. So there is an element, I mean, with the full moon just in general, but there's just an element altogether of release, because you're not going to get the information if you're gripping on to the old ways, if you're gripping on to the old self, if you're gripping on to like the past life trauma, if you're staying a victim, if all of that, you're gonna spiral, you know. And so with Libra really being Scorpio also, you know, it's hard, it's for me at this point, I can't separate them. I see that like during the Greco-Roman time, the claws became the scales, and I think there's significance to it, but it is the gateway going deeper into the Scorpion. And like, you don't want to be like swirling around in the darkness, you know, you want to be able to have that light. And the claws and the scales used to be the light and the lantern. The Scorpion was seen carrying the lantern. So you got to remember that you've got the light, you've got the light candle, you've got the flashlight, you've got the lantern as you go deeper into your own self. If you forget that part, or if you're clinging on to all this old stuff, you're going to get there and it's going to feel like you're, you know, drowning in the swamp. So, you know, Scorpio energy can be swampy, but it also can be like really powerful, like poison path, like the serpent. So yeah, this eclipse is like, the more we talk about it, I'm like, hot damn, like this eclipse really, there's so much happening, you know, there's so many aspects of it.
Yeah, and I wanted to speak a bit about what you were talking about like what you can take with you, what needs to be released. I mean, over here, with the sun and Mercury and Venus in Libra, also we have the South Node too is here, and the South Node, that's the tail of the dragon. That's what needs to be released. That you talked about past lives. This is, you know,
The
what
incinerator.
the incinerator.
Yeah, I like it
What
called
what
that.
what we need to release. And you know, the South Node is actually linked up with this star Alphecca, which is one of the 15 stars that the alchemists used in their magical workings, and it's in Corona Borealis, the northern crown. So I just see this as a moment like the crown chakra. This is the crown that's above, actually, Serpens, the constellation that Ophiuchus holds. Above the head of the snake is the crown. And Alphecca is a star.
Uh-oh. Your limits, bro, your limits. It's the limits. You got too much Saturn over there. You got too much Saturn. Okay, you're back. Yeah, you're back. Okay.
Someone was FaceTiming me. That never, I don't know. It and so I got kicked off. But I'm just talking about Corona Borealis,
Yes.
the crown above Serpens, the snake that Ophiuchus holds, and the star Alphecca being one of the 15 Bohemian stars. So this is a star of magic. This is a star of gnosis, of self-knowledge. And if it's the South Node, like, yeah, what do we need to release to have that awareness, that to illuminate the crown? Like, what needs to go through that tail of the dragon for this eclipse?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely with like the crown of, I mean, I think it's interesting that you and I both had COVID during Corona Borealis times. I think that there's some magic to that. And the crown that sits on top of serpents held by Ophiuchus, this is like the mysteries, the serpent mysteries. And for us to be able to become aware, remember, it's not that we're necessarily finding something new. It's actually quite old and we're allowing it to come forward. We have to release all the stuff that's keeping us from that gnosis or keeping us from the serpent mysteries. I mean, the biggest part for me when connecting to serpent mysteries is the power of regeneration, the power of rejuvenation. Like it's healing magic, it's healing energy. And a lot of us have forgotten how our bodies, our brains, our everything wants to regenerate and rejuvenate. So you've got to let go. I mean, if you like never went to the bathroom or if you never exhaled or, you would feel bad. If you kept it all in, if you never pooped and you kept it all in, you would eventually get like, your system would become like septic. And so same thing with energy, same thing with beliefs, same things with ideas, same things with past lives. You've got to be able to release it out through the tail so that it can turn into the compost, so that it can continue building the foundation, and so that you can make room inside of yourself for yourself. And I do think that crown really, even like thinking about the stars being like the jewels and the gems that sit on the crown, and each one of the jewels and gems like possessing a certain amount of like knowledge and magic, and each one of our crown is unique, and everyone's unique. And so I mean, I love these stars.
well, that's another name actually for Alphecca, Gemma.
Gemma,
And
yeah.
and the star of Gnosia, I believe, is another name connected to gnosis, self-awareness, self-knowledge.
I mean, that's the power of the serpent and the dragon. I mean, even if you look in any other like cultures that like work a lot with dragon, I mean, dragon to me has so much to do with like sovereignty and knowing yourself and like taking responsibility. If we're going to bring it back to Aries, like a big part of being in your magic and being in your power is taking responsibility for yourself. If you're like, oh my God, I'm a victim and they hurt me and forever, 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 you're not going to take power for yourself. You can notice things that have happened in your life and you don't want them to happen again, but there's that back to that fine line. There's that pivot point to be like, okay, this happened. Now how am I going to utilize this to regenerate and rejuvenate and resurrect myself so that you can actually live your life. And I really think that eclipses in general bring that, but especially this one with all the specific placements that we've talked about so far. Even that image of like the crown sitting on top of the serpent, I really think there's just something so powerful about that, almost like the serpent king or queen, the magic that's all held within like the wisdom of the serpent. And serpents go back, even talking about Cetus, I mean, that could also be a primordial water serpent, back to like the primordial energy. Serpent energy is old, super old. And so you're tapping in to that like very ancient wisdom that your soul has carried along with you lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And the only reason you've forgotten is because you've gone through like pain and sorrow, and that's like created that barrier between you and yourself. So it is really just like the time to get it moving, move your body, wiggle around like a serpent, do some cat cow. Like I just think that this is the time to like move it through.
Yeah, move it through.
Move it through.
I just want to give a little voice to Venus.
Oh yes.
The Venus is the ruler of Libra, and Venus is right at the other major star of Libra, the northern claw, the northern scale, Zubin Eshemali. So we've got the Sun, Mercury at Zubin El Janubi. These are fun star names.
I know, I like them.
The Zubins, they're a pair. But we have the Sun and Mercury together at Zubin El Janubi, the southern claw, the southern scale, and then we have Venus at Zubin Eshemali. And Venus, planet of love, appreciation, diplomacy, connection, relationship, values.
Money.
Money. Venus is, again, the ruling planet of these stars and is conjunct the only star in the heavens that we see as green, Zumina Shamali, green, the color of the heart chakra, the planet of love. Um, I'm really fascinated by this green star. If you look up, certain astronomers say, no, 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 it can't be green. But over much time, people throughout history have reported this star as green. And I find that interesting that the planet of love and talking about weighing the heart against a feather, we have the planet that connects to our hearts at this green star
Well, yeah, I
on one
was
of the
about to
scales.
like say that this, if on one side of the scale you've got Venus and the other side of the scale you've got the sun and Mercury, you really are able to like tap into those deeper messages of the heart too. And I mean, that literally is the story of Mahat, really weighing the heart against the feather. And so our hearts like are meant to clear. We're not supposed to like hold on to a whole bunch of stuff. So there's so many powerful healing abilities that come with this eclipse, even having two of these planets like sitting in each of the scales or in the claws or, however you want to look at it, to be able to really bring us closer into our own hearts and our own selves. I really think that that's a very important thing because you got to have love for yourself. That's really an important thing. And a lot of these journeys, like the healing journey, this journey of the spirit, like discovering the soul, it can be challenging. I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, or a lot of people want to numb out because it can be really challenging to see what has blocked us from ourselves. So, be patient with yourself. I think this is never a time to like shame yourself, or you don't need to like whip yourself anymore, like people out there. I think a lot of times that we don't feel like we're healing fast enough, we get like down on ourselves, and the heart wants to bloom. I think that it's about arriving within ourselves. The heart is like a flower, Venus, it's like a flower. It wants to bloom. I mean, even Venus makes a flower. So it's like it wants to bloom, and you don't rush that. You're not going to rush a rose blooming. You're going to allow it. You're going to water it. You're going to give it nutrients. You're going to give it sunlight, And so I do see that that's really happening right now. And like having patience for yourself, but also just really like arriving where you're at and not trying to force yourself to be any one thing.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about just the notion of the balance, the great balance, but we're also having, as far as the I am of Aries is balanced with all of this Libra energy, or ideally like of collaboration, of connection, of relationship, diplomacy, but there is simultaneously the sun is providing that light from those stars to this realm of I am, and I am the emperor. I strive out into the unknown.
Well, we really learn about ourselves through other people, through relationship and through connection. If you sit in a dark room by yourself for your whole life, you're not going to learn. You'll learn something about yourself, but it's not going to be the same as when you make connections with people or hang out with people or talk to people. Even the people that like trigger you the most are usually teaching you the most. Like, because triggers, I mean, you have to go through triggers. That's the only way you're going to know where the wound is. That's the only way you'll know where you've got to like focus and heal. So, thinking about like maybe some of the people who trigger you the most, or interactions that like rub you like the wrong way, those are teaching you a lot about yourself. So that like Libra Aries, axis is really like, okay, let's come in together for collaboration. Let me learn, and then let me like find my individuality in that too. Because like none of us would be anything if others weren't here. It's not just, you're not just alone walking around on the planet, So I think it's important to like notice that that comes up too, because there is that T square, there's some tension. You may have some of this with people, but remember, like, what is it teaching you about yourself? I think it's important to bring it back to yourself. What if you're having this with somebody, like, what is that teaching you about yourself? If you're feeling triggered by somebody, what is that teaching you about yourself? Because we're going deeper in, we're in the descent. We're in the descent, Anana's descent. We're gonna go more into Scorpio as the sun keeps moving. So really, I mean, we're learning about ourselves and everybody is like reflecting back to us what we need to see. As annoying as it is sometimes.
Yeah. How are we feeling? Should we,
I'm hungry.
you're
I feel
hungry.
hungry.
I do want to just say the ruler of Aries is important to look at for this eclipse, this lunation, Mars.
Oh yeah.
Mars has recently gone retrograde and is in the stars of Taurus. Mars has just started moving after a long stationary period of really digging in. Mars is like just starting to move from basically the horns of Taurus, and it's the silver gate. It's the opposite point of our galactic center. So the galactic anti-center, the galactic edge. This is the silver gate. But Mars is retrograding back towards Aldebaran. And it's just that this Taurus energy is really important to also consider as the ruling planet of Aries. So we're in the realm of the great cosmic bull that has to do with our worthiness, our the way we acquire resources, our experience of sensuality and pleasure. But that planet is a very important piece of this eclipse.
Yeah,
Mars.
I mean, having us go back and like reflect through that too, like ways in, I mean, to me, like the retrogrades are just like we're walking backwards through like the same landscape that maybe we went through a little quickly. So we're going back and like, you know, what is the worthiness? Like really going into self-worth, like, oh, are these things that I'm doing to like make money? Is it working for me? Is this like everything to do with like Taurus? Like, what do I actually value? Am I valuing something that like isn't actually like what my heart truly values? Like all of those things coming together so that you can step more into that like ignition point of Aries. But with Mars being retrograde, even with like the Aries activated, there's still that retrograde energy. Can't escape the retrograde energy.
Absolutely. That's, Mars is coming closer to the Earth. So I feel Mars very present in the retrograde aspect. And it's really like digging into our, into ourselves, like where are we putting our energy? What are
Yeah.
we motivated to do? Like how do we want to utilize this sacred warrior energy of Mars? And, as we're going to have Mars in Taurus until the end of March of 2023. So we're really going to get to know this energy, especially as Mars backs up to one of the four royal stars, Aldebaran. I won't go into that yet. Maybe a future live, but it's just a really powerful time for Mars. And so Mars being the ruling planet of where the eclipse is landing, this is just important to reflect upon.
I mean, my guides were telling me over and over with like Mars retrograde to, really focus on your energy. They had me right on my arm, focus on my chi. Because, where you put your energy is where you're putting your energy. And so if you're like doom scrolling all day, that's where the energy goes. If you're like worrying about other people, that's where the energy goes, and really focusing on the energy, because our energy, our chi is precious. Like it's precious, and like we have to make it. You have to make it by like eating food and drinking water, which we have to go buy that. Like that's all very tourist themes. Like it's not just like somebody's dropping produce off on our like front lawn, or you have to work in order to make money to be able to get the food, to be able to have the energy. So then if you just use your energy kind of like randomly, or you spill it all out, it's that whole cycle that you've just like wasted more than just that, the whole like cycle to be able to even get the energy to begin with. If we don't eat, if we don't sleep, we're not going to have energy. If we don't have good nutrition, we're not going to have energy. If we're like stressed out and worrying all the time, we're not going to have good energy. If you're not sleeping, we're not going to have good energy. All of those things are very Taurus themed. So it's like this whole cycle of like even making the energy. Like our energy is our precious fuel. We should be treating our energy like gold, because it literally is. So I think that's a big focus, at least for me, with the Mars retrograde, is like, how are you using your energy? Like all of it. Like how are you, like what are you buying? Like what food are you buying? What supplies are you buying? Like how are you like talking to yourself? How are you using your energy? What are you thinking about? Like what do you spend your time doing? All of us could improve this. Like all of us could improve this so that we can have the cycle of energy really working for us, so that we don't have to constantly be doing something, so that we can actually be like, okay, I got things done. Now I can go frolic or play or take a nap, or whatever, things that we'd rather be doing. So I do see that's going to be a big focus until Mars goes, direct again. We're really going to, and on our self-worth, because I think a lot of times we utilize our energy in ways that are maybe crappy for us because we aren't like tapping into our full self-worth. So there's a lot of themes going on. Astrology is endless.
Yes, and how we're yes, all of that, and how we are cultivating our stability, a sense of stability. And start here, Mars is at the horns of the bull. So what are we grabbing by the horns, so to speak? Because Mars will eventually return to this place at the horns, but the journey begins here. So yeah, there's a lot more I could say about aspects Mars is making, but I feel like we're coming to a good, like, that's probably enough. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I feel like we're good. There's so many things that we could talk about. I feel like we covered a lot. Um, I think the takeaway is listen to yourself, pay attention to your intuition, listen to your body. Your body's always going to tell you what it needs. Like maybe you need to go for a walk, maybe you need to take a bath, maybe you need to eat some soup. Really like tap into what you need during this eclipse energy so that you can receive the messages that are for you, so that you can really get those deep messages from your soul, because only you are going to be able to hear your truth. Only you are going to be able to know your truth. Nobody can tell you, nobody can figure it out for you. So, make room for yourself, and don't try to force yourself to do anything that really isn't for you right now. Like let yourself get the like magic of the eclipse.
Yes, the magic of the eclipse. They are magical times. Wow.
They are. This one definitely came in strong, at least for me. I was hit with some sudden surprises that I'm still
Um,
recovering from.
Uranus, surprise, surprise.
Surprise! Uranus is here.
Thank you to anyone and all who listen to us talk, and if anyone has any thoughts or questions, feel free to type them in for this last moment. Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And Nika, Veronica, thank you. And Zola, and anyone else who was here that I am not
Thank you
aware of.
to everybody that watched now, and thank you to everybody who's going to watch in the future. And yeah, should I take the
Happy
circle down?
eclipsing. Happy eclipsing.
Happy
Um,
eclipsing.
Yeah, we could take the circle down.
Yeah, circle down. I thank all guides, guardians, wise ancestors, ascended masters, angels, and starry beings that love all of us beyond any reason for being here today, supporting our live. And I thank all elements and directions all around for holding a safe container of protection, starting with center spirit, north earth, west water, south fire, and east air. And the circle is open, but all of our hearts remain connected. And blessings to everybody. Happy
Yeah, thanks.
eclipse.
Thanks, Jen. I saw you were here. Thank you.
Yay.
All
All
right.
right. Bye.
Bye.